Hey, Starlene, Grant here again, working Louie. I'm just gonna go ahead and saddle him up, brush him, saddle him, and my goal for today is to um, just hopefully just jump on and really just kind of start riding. Um, I want to kind of see how that goes. I'll probably do just a little bit of groundwork, just kind of a short pre-flight, and if things aren't going very well with him, then work with the horse you have today, right? And may not even end up getting on today. You never know. But I'm feeling pretty good today. It's a nice calm day, no wind, like still light outside. Just feels like the day to get on. And I've already been riding a bunch of other horses, so I'm all loosened up and in the saddle mode. And I think it's the right day for him too. So I want to just get to riding a little bit today, hopefully. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm gonna do in this first ride, if I get to. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk about just his demeanor and encourage you, anyone watching this video, if you haven't recently watched some of the first videos of this horse, if you've been kind of following the series and maybe it's been a week or two since you watched some of those first videos, I encourage you to go back and re-look at how this horse was, for the first few weeks he was here, and then take a look at him now. And I think you'll be pretty impressed, actually. You notice, like, basically since I turned on the camera, he really hasn't moved his feet. He's got one foot cocked, but I mean, he's very present. He's looking around at me. He doesn't feel the need to be prancing around. Hi, bud. He's engaged without being overly in my space and crawling on top of me or anything. He's not jumping and spooking at every little thing. You'll see when I put the saddle on. I mean, there was quite a few days, I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly. I know there was one, but I think he did it quite a few days where something would just trigger him and he'd just kind of sit back. And it's not like he would break the halter or anything, but he'd just sit back and then he'd have to kind of regroup and, okay, just these little explosions, as I call them. And he's just not doing those things anymore. And so I think there's a lot of improvement that has happened, which is obviously what you're paying me for. So I hope there is, but I just like to point that out, I suppose. Get my saddle pad that I want here. It's been hot today, so all my saddle pads are wet. I'm trying to get a fresh one for him. Okay, let's use this one. So yeah, I wanted to, like I said, just talk about his demeanor, and like I said, encourage you guys, take a second, go back, click on one of those early videos from one of the first weeks that he first got here, and just compare his demeanor right now to that. And partly I want you to do that because I want to show off and show that he's improved a ton. But I also want to do that because it's a good exercise for you guys watching this. If you're trying to learn how to train, one of the first things that you need to start learning, or even just for people who ride, even if you don't want to be a trainer, you're still a trainer because you ride a horse. So if you interact with a horse, one of the biggest things you need to learn how to do is read a horse and its body language. And is it up? Is it tense? Is it nervous? Is it calm and relaxed? What is that horse's body language telling you? You need to be able to read that. Like even right here, he's not as relaxed as he was before I put the saddle on, right? I'm not really too worried about it. He doesn't look bad. But, it's things I'm noticing, and you need to be noticing those things too. And so it'll be a good exercise for you to compare his mental state right now, and especially while I was brushing him earlier when he's just standing here, to just standing here before a session a couple weeks ago. Anyway, all right, enough on that. I think you get the point. So what I want to talk about is what I'm going to do today. And of course, I'm going to start out just like I did yesterday with lateral flexion, making sure he can lick and chew and stand calmly with me just on his back. I'll start with some disengaging. If all that goes pretty well though, when I start to ask him to just walk off, the key to what I'm gonna do with him, and everybody should do this with your horse at some point. It really should be the first thing you ever do with your horse, but if you're already riding, you can always go back to this and do it again. Ask your horse to walk off and commit to not touching the reins unless they go too fast, and then you can bend them around with one rein, or, well, that's really it actually for the starters. If they go too fast, you can bend them around so that they come back to a stop or the gait that you want. That way you can stay safe, right? If they start doing something that's unsafe, you can bend them around. But other than that, let's just say they start walking, commit to not touching the reins. Leave the reins loose. And it sounds simple, just don't touch the reins, but it's not. It's very, very difficult for people to ride with a completely loose rein and just not touch the reins. And so if you force yourself to do that, maybe have somebody there specifically watching you and saying, don't touch that rein, because you will pick up the rein just by habit. And it's going to feel very weird because your horse is going to probably duck and dive somewhere and go somewhere you weren't planning on going. But that's part of the point. You need to let your horse make that mistake. And I'll talk about what you're going to do when you kind of get to where your horse wants to go. We're going to go get into a lot of that today. But kind of the end state of that is that you're going to get to a point where, after probably a few days, but where you can walk and eventually trot and eventually lope all over the entire arena without touching the reins. And your horse is no longer going to be what we call destination addicted. So addicted to a certain place in the arena, or it could be out of the arena, but this in case in here. So I know that when I get on this horse's back, he's going to be destination addicted to right here, to this gate. Move your feet, please. Move your feet. Move your feet. Move your feet. Not sideways, backwards. Thank you. So he had a little explosion there, but I'm okay with that one because I was asking him to move. And so you're like, ooh, I wasn't expecting that. He was almost too calm and dull, right? And I had to get him a little responsive there. That's okay. Anyway, I'll go through more of this destination addiction stuff if I get to it under saddle. But I think you get the idea. Basically, you're going to let him go wherever he wants, and you're just going to start waving your legs a little bit when he gets where he thinks he wants to be. And I'm strategically getting on him kind of where he wants to be, right? I'm not going to take him to that end of the pen or a mile away and get on him there, because if he decides to go home, he has a long ways to go home, right? I'm going to get on him pretty close to where he wants to be. And that way, if he really has to go to that gate right there, well, okay, fine, go to the gate, So I'm giving him every opportunity to do the right thing here, which is just stand still, because for starters, I'm not asking him to do anything, right? So set him up for success, set yourself up for success. Start where the horse wants to be. All right, before I get on, I'm gonna do my little pre-flights. So I'm gonna check my lateral reflection. That was not so great. He gave me a little resistance there and I was turned to the outside. There he gave, good. Kind of bounce back to front. I'm gonna do his offside. So he's not really doing so well in this pre-flight inspection. Now, it's not to be completely unexpected because we haven't done any groundwork yet. Right, I literally just got him out of the pen and saddled him. So haven't warmed him up, haven't warmed up his brain, nothing, So I'm testing here, hey, when I get him out of the pen, could I just go step on and be safe? I'm gonna ask him to disengage. A little bit dull on that, but he didn't explode with it, so I like it. It's just a little bit dull. I'm gonna ask him to disengage here. He kind of went forward instead of disengaging there. Now I noticed that front end kind of swung away from me a little bit, so I'm gonna ask this front end to free up. That's better. Okay. And now my lateral flexion works better too. Okay. And there's my looking at you. So what he's telling me right now is he still needs to be warmed up a little bit and gotten into the mindset, which is fine. I mean, we're like 3 weeks into his training. I mean, that's totally fine. He's leaning on me a little bit there. He's not really getting off of that. There. Try to free up that front end a little bit. So he's a little stiff on this right side, both in the front end and the hind end. Don't get in front of me, please. Thank you. But free up the front end. Just follow that rein. Don't get ahead of the rein. Just follow the rein. Step up. There. He's trying to suck back a little bit there. Just throw his head up in the air. There, he got soft and I got soft. Good. Good. Lateral flexion. Let's check this disengaging. Better. Oop. Better in the sense that he actually moved his body away from me that time. Now, he didn't really disengage. It was more of a step over. There, that's what I'm looking for. So if I can't do that on the ground, you know, when I get in the saddle, he's throwing me back in that left eye. So I'm going to kind of get up here and say, hey, I own this spot, not you. Thank you very much. There. You need to yield to me and stop being pushy. And he's kind of going back to, remember when we first started doing lateral flexion and he wanted to spin like that? He's kind of going back to his roots there. So this whole right side is just very, very pushy. And so I'm going to work back and forth from his hind end to his front end and his hind end and his front end to get this off of me. And this may be where we need to do quite a bit of work today. That's okay if it is. This is what we got to find. I like coming out here and planning on riding and doing these pre-flight checks and figuring out what doesn't work, because I guarantee you there's never a time where you're going to find more holes in your horse than when you're fixing to do a first ride. And I know this isn't exactly a first ride in the sense that he has been ridden before. At that time when I stepped his shoulder over, the next thing he did was drop his hind end towards me. So I'm going to make sure this hind end gets off of me. You see how he's jumping out to the side instead of disengaging? Better. I'm going to make sure that shoulder can move. Better. That time his whole body yielded from me. Now I'm not really asking the hind end to move when I do that shoulder. I really just want the front end to move. And he can be soft in the face. Good. But I definitely don't want the hind end falling in on top of me. Now he just went to put me back in that left eye. So I will just take that opportunity to go right back to work. Now he dropped that hind end in on top of me. I'm gonna get that hind end off of me. He needs to get a little bit of like energy, moving that hind end away. There. There. That was better. I'd like for him to finish up that with a little bit better. Now see how he put me right back in that right eye, or his left eye, sorry. I'm just gonna come up here and go right back to work. He dropped that hind end in on top of me. Let's say, get that hind end off me. Yield that shoulder. See how that's all dropping in on top of me? Just gonna hold this till he gets soft in his face and actually yields that body. There. Now just allow him to do lateral flexion and be done. Good. That's all he had to get to. All he has to do is find that. But I'd much rather go through that little fight with him not being able to find it here than when he's that wasn't too bad, but I'd like this hind end to step over a little bit. He's just not truly yielding this side at all. There's no like, oh, let me get off of that. It's just pushing into it and pushing and pushing and pushing. So that's got to get fixed. I don't remember what I was saying last. I think I interrupted myself and didn't finish a point, but I don't know what it was. There you go. Good boy. That time he didn't try to put me back in that left eye. That's what I'm going for. Just let him have a little rest here. If he can hold that body position. See, him being able to hold this body position and not drop that shoulder back down or turn and put me in that left eye, that's the same as if I'm loping around here or trotting or walking or whatever, and I pick up that shoulder and I frame him up in a certain body position. I want him to hold that even if I take my legs off, right? Until I put him in a different body position. It's like if I'm gonna frame him up and want to do a lead departure, or a lead change, let's say, I don't want to have to hold his body there. I want to be able to put it there and leave it, right? This is the exact same thing right here. Once I put a body part somewhere, he needs to hold that frame. Good. Very good. That was good lateral flexion right there. Much better. Okay. Last kind of thing of the pre-flight check that I have not done is just sending him around in a circle. So I'm going to go ahead and just get his blood moving a little bit. Get him remembering that right there. So he's pulling that to the outside, trying to drag me back to that gate. Just going to remind him. And you know what? If he wants to be a jerk about it, I'm just going to go ahead and tie his head around. Go right back to that. Say, hey, dude, you want to pull on me? I'll give you something to pull on. And it ain't going to be me, because I'm not going to stand here and just get pulled on for the rest of my life. So you just pull on yourself, and I'll go get a cup of coffee. There we go. All right. We'll let that bake for a little bit. And I don't want you to think from me kind of getting mad at him right there that, you know, that I'm not happy with where he's at. This is great. Like, we have to find find these little points where he gets mad and says, no, I don't want to do it. It's good that we're finding these, and it's good that we got, I don't know how far we're in, 15 minutes maybe into the session before we really had something like that. That's fantastic. And I think he just kind of was confused there more than anything. I don't think he really was trying to say no or whatever. I think he just kind of lost the plot for a second. So it's okay. I'm not mad at him or anything. He just got to learn. It's all part of the training process. All right. I'm going to see if he learned from that rather than having to go, actually send him around me and do all the other stuff. I'm going to see if maybe he learned his lesson. Give him an opportunity to prove to me that he doesn't need to have his head tied around and go around like that each time. Better. See, this time when this bit contacts his mouth, he's like, oh, let me put my face into that. Not dragging me towards the gate. Very good. Catches the stop nicely. Goes this direction. The reins came tight just for a split second, but he came off of it real quick. Head's a little bit lower. And that's what we got to get rid of. And then when I correct him, he gets into this, I don't want to do it mode. See what I mean? There. So I might need to tie his head around on this side. That's all right. I was going to give him an opportunity to show me that we didn't need to. And he took the opportunity to show me that we do need to. So again, no big deal, not mad at him, just an opportunity to train. So if he doesn't want to give to my hands, we can see how much he wants to give to the saddle. So I'm just putting more pressure on him over there because that gate's where he's trying to get to. So I just want to start that destination addiction process and tell him, hey, get into that gate. It's not all it's cracked up to be. Because you're going to get more pressure every time you get to that gate. More pressure. So you might want to stay away from it. Better. That time he was given to the rein all the way around. He kept flicking an ear back to me. So I rewarded him by not putting the pressure on. There we go. Now if he didn't, that time he said, ooh, gate. I think I'll go to the gate because last time there was no pressure. So I'll bet this time I can go to the gate with no pressure. Should have tied that rein just a smidge tighter. He's kind of able to brace against it and keep his neck straight, and that's not really the point. So I probably made that rein a little loose, but it'll work. Okay, let's see if he learned his lesson. See, now that I've created this tool, theoretically, I can use it, very quick, and he'll learn his lesson from it. I don't have to sit here for 30 minutes and have his head tied around, hopefully. As he comes around right here, he should stay off the bridle. He doesn't. Drag him into this. He's still pulling, so just go right to tying that rein around. No animosity or anger or anything, it's just binary. It's just, hey, if you pull on me, I'm going to set it up where it pulls right back on you. So, probably not smart, He'll figure it out. Come on. This is work time. See, if he just walked around me nice and easy and gave to that halter, it'd be easy, but this is a whole lot more work, and it needs to be more work. That's the whole point. This can't be easier than what we were doing before, or else he won't learn the lesson. He needs to be like, crap, how do I not get my head tied around again? This is how you develop respect for your hands when you're sitting in the saddle and you pick up on that rein. He's got to respect that rein more than he fears, you know, whatever may happen out there on the trail, or no matter how much he wants to chase the cow or run from the rabbit. If you pull on the reins, he needs to, let's keep working for a little bit. I didn't ask you to slow down. He's staying pretty tight on that rein. I'm just going to leave him there while I go ahead and pick up this poop. If I'd walked up there and he'd been nice and soft, I would have let him go. But I walked up there and he was just hanging on that rein. So he can hang on it a little bit longer. All right, let's see if he wants to be soft to that rein now. Yeah, a little bit better than earlier. Not super loose. I'm going to stay here a second. There's loose. All right. Okay, he got good there. I wasn't loving what I was getting there for a second, but then he got good. So there's a lick and a chew. I think he kind of figured it out. There's good. See, I don't mind if it comes tight for a second, but as soon as he feels it, he needs to give. And that's what he did right there. Good. Okay, so tying his head around there worked. So, there's a lot of techniques out there that can be applied in a very harsh way where the horse doesn't learn very much, and a lot of techniques that can be applied in a good way where the horse does learn a lot. And if you're doing a technique and your horse isn't getting better, yeah, there's some times when you just got to keep doing it and keep doing it. It gets worse before it gets better. There is that. But for the most part, if you do something, especially something harsh to your horse, and your horse gets worse, you probably misapplied that harsh technique, okay? You do something kind of harsh, like tie your horse's head around, and right after that, he's really good and responsive and everything clicks. You applied it really well. There was nothing inhumane about tying his head around there. He was able to get off the pressure. He had to work for it, but hey, that's what we're doing out here, is working. It's not playtime, it's work time. All right, and I'm gonna reward him. He may not feel like it's a reward, but what I am gonna do is just, what will be a reward for him is just moving on, just going on to the next thing. I'm gonna bring him back to the gate here where he wants to be. And I'm going to trust him that he's going to be good because he got good there at the end. He wasn't good for most of that, but then he got good. And so I'm going to go ahead and trust him and move on, not ask for that anymore. and just go ahead and jump on his back. And if I do this correctly, jumping on his back right now should actually be more of a release. I really should tighten up this cinch on the other side. I did this yesterday, and then I had to redo it today for Vandy. Even just standing here while I'm messing with the cinch is now a release from what we were doing. So this horse was cinchy when I first got him, a little bit, not terrible, not all the time, but sometimes. And we've successfully flipped the script now to where messing with the cinch is actually his release, which is awesome. Good boy. Much better. Okay. Feels good. Looking and chewing, puts his head down, beautiful. Just like when I was bareback. Lots of licking and chewing. And that's where I really want to get to. I mean, even if it takes me a few extra days, if I can get to where getting on his back is his release, and he looks forward to that, he's like, hey, will you just get on? Because that's the release. Man, that's going to make riding so much better. All right, let's check out some lateral flexion. Good. A little confused by that, but it's all right. Good. Little mini explosion there. Didn't move his feet, but mental explosion. It's all right. I really think this horse has a lot of traumatic experiences built up with being in the saddle. And that's why I'm going extra slow with him. You know, with the colt, I probably could already be moving around quite a bit because a colt's not going to go back to that place and remember, and oh, this is bad. This is bad. You know, once you kind of show a colt, I'm sitting on your back and no big deal. And from then on, they're kind of like, who cares? But with him, he kind of remembers this whole sitting on his back thing as a bad thing. And so when he moved there, he just got his neck real tense. And so I'm just going to go back to my lateral flexion until he lifts his back a little bit and gets back to soft. My saddle kind of slipping. See how tense he is there? Head goes way up in the air. So I just got to get him through this. It's no big deal, but I'm also not going to go start riding off when he's spinning himself up. So I've taught him all the tools on the ground, how to come back down from having himself spun up. Because if you remember, he used to spin himself up like this, standing tight at the rail, right? Good. Now he's starting to come back down. Good boy. Good. And he got super tense again. So now he can't even do his lateral flexion. And I mean, when I say he can't, like, yes, he's bending his head over that way, but he's not getting soft ever. He's just pulling against the rein, trying to get back over there. Good. There, he loosened up to it. Good. And then he spins himself right back up. And he's still pulling against me. There, he gave. Good. lick and chew, and right back up, right? Better. That time he gave right away. Good boy. Now I didn't do much to loosen up his neck. Good. But the cool thing about this, you see that I'm using this lateral flexion to achieve relaxation, right? Because he spins himself up. I ask for lateral flexion, and he relaxes a little bit. And then he spins himself up, and I do some lateral flexion, and it gets him to relax, at least ideally. Um, and so what starts to happen is the more up he gets, or when he gets up a little bit, when you touch that rein starts to equate to relax my neck. And if something does scare him and he starts to run off, and you just touch that rein, no matter how scared he is, there's going to be some part of his brain that goes, oh, I know what to do when the rein gets touched. Relax my neck and give and bend. So this is kind of interesting. He's distracted, but his head's still low. His head's a lot lower than it was a second ago. Now I felt his back crunch down or lower down, and his head popped up. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm doing this lateral flexion until he lifts his back and releases his neck. Because his back and neck are linked. It's all the same spine, right? So you can't really, like if you think about your neck, such as it is, and your back, you can't really do something to your neck without it affecting your back, right? Same with him. If he loosens his neck and lowers his head a little bit, his back's going to have to lift. And same thing, if he pops his head up in the air, his back's going to have to flatten and lower out. There you go. Good boy. Good. Now his neck's nice and loose. His back's fairly engaged, kind of neutral on both, I'd say, but that's a pretty good spot right there. Very good. I'd like him to be able to stay here for a little bit. Every other time from his back, and it used to be from the ground too, but every other time from his back, he spirals up, right? Gets distracted, but see how his ears are in a nice neutral position? He's not like locked onto something over there. His head hasn't gone up. I want to see if he can come from here and go ahead and release into a lick and a chew. And this is a good time when you're waiting on your horse to lick and chew like this. And I know I'm always nervous sitting on their back. Sometimes I'm even nervous standing on the ground when I'm waiting for them to lick and chew, because even though it really doesn't matter, good boy, it doesn't really matter what they do. We as humans want them to relax, right? We want them to do the right thing so we can move on. And sometimes when you're just sitting there still and you're waiting for him to lick and chew, that's the most nerve-wracking time. Forgot this halter's in the way of the camera. I'm gonna move this real quick. And so it's a great time for you just to do some breathing exercises, some relaxation, some meditation if you're into that. Whatever it kind of takes for you to relax, take the time to do that, because if you're not relaxed, you're asking a whole lot of your horse to relax when you're not. And I have issues with that. I mean, I am not perfect at this stuff by any means. And sometimes a lot of times when I'm sitting here, good boy, my heart rate's pretty high. I'm a little amped. He can feel it through my legs and through my seat. Good boy. And I know if I was just calm, he'd be calm. That happens with a lot of horses. And so, that's something I'm working through, but it's a good thing for you to work through as well. Good boy. Love where he's at right here. I'm just going to ask him to disengage his hind end a little bit. Well, I was, but since he was relaxed, but he wasn't able to bend and stay relaxed, right? He got a little up through that bend. I've got to be, that's better. Ooh, that's good right there. That's really good. See if the other side works that good. Not really. He's pretty soft in the lateral, but he's not soft in the vertical, if that makes sense. And I can explain more. I don't want to go into a whole like anatomy thing right now, but just think about that if you don't know what I mean. He was soft in the lateral, but not soft in the vertical there. Good. I was waiting for that ear that time. He was pretty soft, but that ear wasn't flicking back towards me. Okay. Getting better, right? Getting better. At this point, if he wants to stretch his head way down there, shake it off. I'm going to try to loosen the reins out as much as I can. Now, you have to be careful if you're on your horse doing this, or owner on him. If he bolts right now, which I don't think he's going to, but if he got scared and did something, my reins are super long right now, right? I'm not going to be able to just pick up and take him up. So if he brings his head back up, make sure you keep your rein management correct. Now, you don't want to be tight on the reins here. I'm still loose on the reins, but I'm tight enough that if he did something, I could pick up and bend him around real quick right here, or pull back if I need to, whatever, but to keep myself safe. But if he does dive his head down like that, now pretty quick, once he kind of starts to get into the rhythm of riding, I'm not going to allow him to dive his head down like that. It's called rooting, and it's not something you want to let your horse do. But, at this moment, that's not a fight I want to fight, So he's kind of spun himself back up. I'm just going to use my tool that I have, which is lateral flexion. It's pretty much the only tool I have right now to just help him get all the way back down. I want this to be so routine that he's like, oh yeah, I spun myself up, but I know I'm just going to have to come right back down because he's going to do lateral flexion and I'm going to get soft in the neck and eventually I'm just going to relax. And pretty soon you won't even have to do all the lateral flexion. You might just barely touch the reins and he goes, oh yeah, I'm just relaxed. Or he does it on his own, which is the coolest. I'm also feeling that his hind end is shifting its weight a lot. And it could be, good. That's where I want him right there. Go ahead and jump off. So that hind end thing, horses that aren't very used to carrying riders, I think, and I'm kind of making all this up just from my experience. It's a different kind of weight. Like if you put on a backpack for the first time, you might be shifting it around a little bit. And so that might just get better with more time riding, which is building his muscles and stuff. But it is something I'm noticing that is his hind end's kind of shifting around a little bit. So, there could be some pain in his hind end or something. Who knows? There could be pain in every horse. Nobody ever knows. But just something I'm going to keep in the back of my mind and be aware of. And once we really get to riding and we're loping and stuff, and if I'm feeling issues in his hind end, I might think back to now and be like, oh yeah, he was kind of trying to get out from under that pressure with his hind end a little bit. So good. That's what I want right there. Now I'm trying to decide. I would love to go into disengaging right now because he's finally at the point where I feel like I can disengage because he's listening to me and he's relaxed and the lateral flexion is causing him to stay more relaxed. But I'm kind of out of time. And if I get into something that I got to fight with him over and get him back to a good stopping point, then I'm going to have messed up. So I'm going to go ahead and be done with him. I want to get back to that good relaxation one more time. That was an excellent lateral flexion. Excellent lateral flexion on that side. Not very soft in the vertical. Right there, better. And I'm gonna go ahead and get off. Good. So right now I'm just really trying to drill in every time that, hey, you get the release by releasing your neck, lifting your back a little bit, and standing with better posture, essentially. Because he has such a tendency, like right there, he has such a tendency to pop that neck up and drop out his back, hollow it out, and we got to teach him not to do that. So these days where I'm trying to just get him used to getting in the saddle and everything, I can really work on that posture. Good boy. You're so good today. And at the same time, try to help him understand and get him to trust that there's nothing wrong with a human being in the saddle. Because again, I think that he has a lot of trauma from however they rode him before, whatever, I don't know. And he does not want to trust that everything's going to be okay while he's being ridden. And so, you know, like I've said before, a more like, I don't want to say a more confident rider because I'm pretty confident, but a rider who is more like used to just jumping on any old horse any old time. You know, like I'm very particular about horses I ride. I don't ride horses that I feel unsafe on. But people who are more experienced at just cowboy and third and get on any horse anytime and ride it, they would probably get on him right now and be like, he is dead broke. He is so safe. You know what I mean? It's just a difference of standards, I guess you could say. I like to ride horses that are so calm and responsive, and it takes a long time to get them there. So anyway, and I have all the respect in the world for people who are capable of just jumping on any old horse any old time and making it work and get through it. But that's not my style. And I just, you know, we don't live in a society where we're making a live. I mean, I'm making a living from horses, but I'm making a living from making nice horses. I'm not making a living from having to ride a string of 12 horses a day to go round up wild cattle riding 50 miles around the pasture every day. You know, it's not what we do. What we do now is create really safe horses so that somebody can put their grandkid on it after not being ridden for 3 months. You know, that's the kind of horse that I'm trying to produce. And it does take a very long time to get there. And if he's ever going to get to that kind of point where he doesn't stick his head up in the air, because if you had your grandkid sitting on his back and you're leading him around and all of a sudden he goes, right? You'd be a little bit, you'd be like, crap, how do I get my grandkid off of his back before he does something, right? Not to mention the fact that he's just going to go sway back really quick if you let him be like that. It's terrible posture for him. He's never going to be able to do all the cool things that he ought to do as a versatility horse. So anyway, I'm probably rambling. I'll go ahead and shut down this video, get it posted. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.